Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The Archivist's Cut. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1. The name no one should say. I used to work at a digital preservation company based out of Chicago. One of those niche firms that get contracted by museums and film archives to digitize and catalog old reels, decaying negatives, lost shorts from the early days of cinema. I wasn't anything fancy, just a technician. Pay was okay. Hours were long, but I got to watch the past flicker to life on a glowing screen, one frame at a time. We called ourselves the dust collectors. Mostly we handled harmless things, silent comedies, war propaganda, obscure student films from the 60s. Sometimes we joke about finding something cursed or haunted like those internet stories you read. Only one day we actually did, and it killed 4 people. The canister came to us in a crate from a private estate sale in upstate New York. No return address, no invoice, just a sticky note slapped on top, yellowed and curling at the edges. Red, for destruction only. Do not project. Ever. Underlined twice in red. Of course we projected it. That's what we were paid to do. At the time, I didn't even think twice. I logged the reel as unsorted 1926 RPRV, tagged it for review, and handed it over to our senior archivist, a guy named Richard Abel. He was the kind of guy who got excited about nitrate damage and hand-cranked projectors. The moment he cracked open the canister, I saw his expression shift. Not fear, more like awe, reverence. He ran his fingers along the rim of the reel like he was touching something holy. "This is Winshoff's work," he whispered. The name didn't mean anything to me, but it meant a lot to Richard. According to him, Dieter Winshoff was a fringe German director from the silent era. Someone who fell off the cinematic map after 1927. Rumor was he dabbled in expressionist horror, used real corpses in his props, and was eventually blacklisted after a screening that sent audiences into seizures. Urban legend stuff. Not a single one of his films had ever surfaced. Until now. The reel was labeled in spidery handwriting. Der letzte Schnitt. The final cut. Richard insisted on watching it alone. Said it would be too fragile for digitization until he verified its condition. He took it into Bay 3, locked the door, and loaded it into the old reel-to-reel projection system we only used for ultra-sensitive prints. He didn't come out for over an hour. I was the one who found him. Bay 3 was cold when I stepped inside. Not just cool, cold. Like meat locker cold. The air smelled of vinegar and rot. Richard was slumped in the chair, still breathing but barely. Eyes open, mouth slack. The reel had finished spinning and was flapping silently. On the screen, static. And behind that, just the faintest outline of a figure, standing still in a foggy corridor. Cloaked in black. No face. When I shook Richard, he screamed. Not a startled scream. A scream that tore something loose in your brain. He clawed at my face. Took 3 guys to hold him down. They put him on psych hold that night. He never spoke again. All he did day in and day out was draw pictures in crayon. All of the same thing. A black shape, standing at the end of a hallway. We should have burned the reel right then. But of course we didn't. The higher-ups smelled blood in the water. A lost film from a cursed director? That's clickbait gold. They brought in a crew to digitize it secretly and threatened to fire anyone who leaked a word. I was on that crew. So was Paul, color grading, Sarah, audio sync, and Nate, metadata tagging. We worked in the secure lab. No windows, soundproofed walls, cameras turned off. We played the reel at half speed, no sound. Even then it felt wrong. The footage was grainy but disturbingly clear in parts. A man, presumably the protagonist, wanders through a crumbling German village. He stumbles into a church with no altar. Instead, there's a mirror, and when he looks into it, he sees someone else, a version of himself with no eyes. Then it cuts. More walking, more mirrors, each reflection less human. Limbs too long, faces missing. The final mirror shows nothing at all. Paul made a joke. It's like watching a dream rot. Sarah didn't laugh. That night, Paul quit. No explanation. Just walked out and didn't come back. Sarah stopped showing up the next day. Her boyfriend later told us she'd locked herself in the bathroom and refused to come out. Kept muttering, "It's still playing. It's still playing." Nate went missing. Police found his car parked outside the old Methodist cemetery. Doors open, engine running. They never found him. That left me. And the thing is, I kept watching. I had to. Part 2. The Diary of Dieter Winshoff. After the reel was stored in cold vault lockdown, the rest of the team went dark. Emails bounced. Phones disconnected. The office blamed burnout and kept it quiet. But I couldn't stop thinking about the film. Not just the images, the silence. There was something inside it. Like the reel was waiting. I found myself staying late, rewatching clips, scrubbing frame by frame. There were faces that flickered in the background, faces that shouldn't have been there. One night, I froze the playback on a broken church doorway. There, for just 2 frames, was the same figure Richard had drawn over and over. Cloaked, watching, unmoving. I started digging into Winshoff for real. Not Wikipedia. Not film school articles. I mean back channels. Obscure German archives. Scans from film festival pamphlets in the 20s. And that's when I found her. Margot Lenz, a film historian out of Dresden. In her 70s, reclusive, published only in niche journals. But she'd written a whole paper on Winshoff's lost works in Zeitschrift für Occult Medien. I cold emailed her at 3 a.m., not expecting a reply. She wrote back in 15 minutes. "If you have seen even a part of Der letzte Schnitt, then you need to come to me. Do not play it again. This is not film. This is not art. This is a ritual." I flew to Germany 2 days later. Margot lived alone in a crumbling townhouse near the Elbe River. The place smelled like decaying paper and incense. She opened the door holding a worn leather book, clutched like a Bible. "This," she said, "is all that remains of him." It was Winshoff's journal. Not a prop, not a fake. I recognized the handwriting from labels inside the canister. The entries began in 1918. The last one was dated June 1927. What it contained wasn't just madness. It was invocation. The voice came to me not from dreams, but from silence. It has no name. It shows me images I do not create. I do not direct anymore. I only obey. Each film is a gate, a summoning. It takes a piece from me but gives something greater, something older. The final film will contain no dialogue, no music, just breath, just shape. When they see it, they will know, and some will follow. The journal was filled with sketches, long corridors, shapeless things, eyes removed, mouth stretched, a cloaked figure always watching, always central. No face, just that same black slit of a mouth. I flipped to the last page. It was just a sentence scrawled over and over until the ink bled through the paper. Loss is the only real director. I asked Margot what it meant. She looked exhausted. Winshoff believed cinema could reshape the soul, but it required suffering. Loss wasn't a metaphor to him, it was a force, a god, one that answered through light and shadow. I asked her if the deaths were real. She nodded, slowly. Actors vanished. Children who watched the premiere were institutionalized. Theaters burned down. Winshoff was never arrested. They found only his clothes and real case, both soaked in blood. No body. Some say he filmed his own disappearance, that his final cut was not an ending. Before I left, she gave me a flash drive. This is everything I've collected. You'll know what to do. Back in Chicago, I tried to sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw frames that didn't exist, angles I'd never edited. I heard a slow whisper behind static, always the same sentence. Let it play. I broke protocol and reviewed the digitized file alone, at full volume, full speed. It wasn't just a film anymore. The black flicker between scenes? I counted 13 frames where something moved differently, independently, outside the edit. And in those frames I saw her, my sister. She died when I was 12. Same dress, same laugh, and then nothing but static. But in that moment it was her. Not a trick, not a memory, something else. Something used her to look back at me. The next morning the vault was empty. The original reel was gone. The lock wasn't broken, it was melted. No surveillance, no fingerprints. All that remained was a single note on my desk. Type, no signature. You should have let it degrade, but now it will be archived. That week, the drive Margot gave me corrupted my computer. Every system. Blue screen. Hard reset. Only one file survived, buried in a hidden temp folder. A single video fragment. A low hum. A door opening. A man's silhouette. Cloak. Mouth too wide. And then he speaks, but not out loud. Not really. The words don't sound. They imprint directly onto your thoughts. And that's when I realized this wasn't about the film. It never was. The film is just a vessel. The real danger is what it contains. Part 3. Playback is forever. The next few days were a blur. I tried going back to normal life, answering emails, eating toast, pretending the outside world still made sense. But the hum wouldn't stop. It wasn't audible exactly, more like a pressure inside the head, like something whispering from the bottom of a well. And no matter what I did, it kept returning to the same phrase. Let it play. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw frames that never existed in any file I edited. My own memories began to flicker, replaced, corrupted, like parts of my childhood had been taped over. I walked past a mirror in the hallway and saw my reflection blink a second too late. I wasn't alone in my skin anymore. I checked on Richard at the hospital. He was strapped down, drooling into his beard, eyes locked on something just over your shoulder. I brought a USB loaded with a short clip from Der Letzte Schnitt. Just 12 seconds. Silent. I didn't even show it to him. Just held it in my pocket. Richard started screaming the moment I entered the room. Nurses had to sedate him. Later they pulled me aside. Told me he'd been drawing something new. Said it might interest me. They handed me a sketch pad. Inside were page after page of the same image. A theater, but reversed. No screen. Just rows and rows of blank, staring faces. All identical. All wearing my face. That night, I tried to delete the digitized file. Every attempt failed. The file wasn't even listed in the directory anymore. But every time I opened my browser, even offline, it would appear in the tab title. Now playing. I wiped the drives. Factory reset everything. Even changed machines. The file followed. Like it wasn't on the computer anymore. Like it was in me. I reached out to Sarah's boyfriend. Told him it was urgent. He hesitated. Said she hadn't spoken in weeks. Said she'd sealed the windows, blacked out the mirrors. Said she slept on the floor with headphones on, blasting static. He let me in. I found her in the living room. Eyes bloodshot. Lips cracked. She was muttering to herself over and over in a tone that didn't match her voice. You can't mute the frame. The frame speaks without sound. It always has. When I touched her shoulder, she looked up at me. Except it wasn't her. Not fully. There was something in her pupils, like footage running backwards. She leaned in and whispered, "They're watching you now. You should smile." After that, I left Chicago. No job, no plan. Just a phone full of corrupted footage and a sick feeling that wherever I went, it would follow. I drove west for days, stayed in motels, ate cold food, didn't answer calls, and still, I'd turn on the motel TV and the screen would flicker. Just for a moment, a black hallway, a figure at the end, no matter the channel. I needed answers. I needed to know what Der Letzte Schnitt really was. So I did what no one should ever do. I uploaded a single frame, just one, into a private researcher forum I trusted. No title, no metadata, just the image. The next day my post was gone. Not flagged, not removed, just erased. The only reply I got was from a user named Film26. You opened it. That's enough. Turn off your screen. Leave the reel alone. The cut doesn't end. Then they deleted their account. I started dreaming in film stock. Grainy vision. Burnt edges. My hands moved in jittered frames. The world hissed like old tape. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. In one dream I stood in a cinema. Alone. Seat cushions rotting. The projector ran behind me, but the film had no end. Just that same figure walking toward me. Always closer. Never blinking. And when it reached me, I woke up screaming. I made one last attempt to escape it. I went off-grid. Rented a trailer in the mountains. No Wi-Fi. No screens. Just books, candles, and time. And for 3 days, it was quiet. No hum. No flickers, no whispers, until the 4th night. There was a knock on the trailer door. Slow, deliberate. I didn't answer. It knocked again. Then from outside, playback is forever. I haven't opened the door. I'm writing this with a pencil on a torn legal pad. If you're reading this, it means I found a way to upload it without using it. But I need you to understand something. This film doesn't live on reels, or drives, or even screens. It lives in what it shows you. And if you see it, really see it, part of you becomes the next reel. In the final page of Winschoff's journal, there's a drawing. It's a seat, in a theater, and a label underneath, reserved for the next projectionist. I think it's mine. Unless you watch it too, then maybe we can share. Part 4, Viral Light. It's been 3 weeks since I locked myself inside the trailer. No internet, no phone, no screen. Just me, some canned beans, and a manual typewriter I found at a thrift store. I thought isolation would help. That if I severed every connection to the world, maybe it wouldn't follow. But I was wrong, because it doesn't need screens anymore. It just needs eyes. The first sign was a deer. I spotted it outside on the 2nd week, standing at the tree line, motionless, watching. Its antlers were splintered, its body too still. I thought it might be injured. Then it twitched in a way no animal should, frame by frame, like it was trying to render. I closed the blinds and didn't sleep that night. The second sign was my dreams. They changed. I wasn't watching the film anymore. I was inside it, wandering long corridors of flickering walls. Every step echoed like footsteps through a theater long abandoned, and the lights overhead, they pulsed in binary. Like code, there were others in the dream, faceless, watching me from the balcony, clapping in slow motion. Their mouths moved in unison, whispering. One frame, one soul, When I woke, my left hand was covered in ink. I'd written something on my own forearm over and over like automatic writing, not projection, infection. And then below it, upload is irreversible. I broke, packed my things, drove to the nearest town, found a library, used their computer. I searched for Der letzte Schnitt. Nothing official, of course, but on the 4th page of results, I found a forum post, buried deep, obscure horror subreddit. The thread was titled, "Has anyone heard of a cursed film called The Final Cut?" There were 15 comments, each one stranger than the last. My sister saw it in college. Now she draws with her eyelids closed. The audio never ends, even when the speakers are off. I saw myself in it, but I was older and dead. Then from a user named RealBody56. It's already online, just not in the way you think. You think streaming is safe? Think again. It piggybacks on ad servers, on autoplay, on shadows between frames. You're not watching it, it's watching you, through pixels. I panicked, shut the browser, unplugged the computer, but it was too late. That night my dreams returned, but this time I wasn't alone. Someone else was in the corridor with me. Not a monster, not the cloaked figure, Sarah. She was barefoot, pale and trembling. Her eyes were black holes. She didn't speak, she just held out a reel. Her mouth opened and the reel unspooled like tape from her throat. When I touched it, I felt everything. I woke up vomiting. When I looked in the mirror, there were burn marks around my eyes, like I'd stared too long at something radioactive. And carved into the bathroom wall, no tool marks, no paint, were words etched from the inside out. "You will finish what Winshoff started." That same day, the first mainstream article dropped. Mysterious video causes blackouts in France and Brazil. It didn't say the name, but I recognized the screenshots, glimpses, hallways, a mirror with no reflection. The film was out, not as a file, but as something encoded into visual data, an optical virus, a conceptual contagion, passed from frame to frame, like an ancient god riding light. I returned to Chicago. I had to see the vault, had to know if the original reel still existed. The office was locked down, but I still had my old security badge. Inside, everything was empty, clean, sanitized. No signs of my coworkers, except one thing, a chair, facing the blank wall where Bay 3 screen used to be. And in the chair, Richard, or what used to be him. His body was stiff, mummified by time, but his eyes were still open, still watching. On the wall in front of him, scratched into the drywall with fingernails, endless, endless, endless. I recovered the digitized file from the backup server, or rather what was left of it. It was now titled simply, "You," and it was blank, completely black. But when I boosted the brightness to max, I saw text, barely visible, embedded in the pixels. "There is no viewer, only vessel." That's when I knew. It wasn't just showing us something. It was using us to replicate. Every watch, every pause, every replay. It turned people into frames. And I was next. There's no stopping it now. I've seen the code, the way it mutates. It doesn't need the internet anymore. It's in reflections, in shadows cast between flickering lights, in old photographs where the background starts to shift. The final cut isn't a film. It's a blueprint, a transmission, and we've been building it piece by piece every time we remember. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to stop looking. If you ever see a video that doesn't have a title, that opens with silence, in a hallway, shut it off. If you see yourself in the third frame, walking but you don't remember filming it, Burn the screen, because if you keep watching, you won't see the ending. You'll become it. Part 5. The Frame Before Memory. After I left the vault, I went underground. Not in the spy movie sense. I mean literal basements. No windows, no screens. I wore sunglasses indoors. I ripped the mirror off my motel bathroom wall. I ate cold soup from the can and kept a journal written entirely by hand, because I'd finally realized what it wanted. Not attention, audience. I stopped saying its name, stopped thinking the words final cut. Even that phrase, those syllables, were like keys in a lock. I could feel them turning somewhere behind my eyes. The fewer people remembered, the weaker it became. But it wasn't just hiding in media anymore. It had evolved. Now it lived in memory. The realization came during a migraine, a blinding one. No sound, no light, just a pressure like someone squeezing my skull from the inside. And then I saw it, not the figure, not the hallway, but a theater, ancient and stone-carved, dug into the earth like a burial chamber. And on the walls were not film reels, but symbols, moss, mirrors, rows of watchers carved faceless, and written on the ceiling in a looping alien script. Loss is the only lens. When I came to, I was on the floor of a public library in Arizona. I blacked out, apparently wandered in and collapsed in front of the old VHS collection. The librarian said I'd been murmuring something. Reel to reel, reel to reel, reel to reel. That's when I knew. This wasn't Winshoff's creation. He was just the first who understood it, the first to shape it into something watchable. But it had always existed, before film, before cameras. It lived in stories, in dreams, in grief. I booked a flight to Vienna. That's where Winshoff was born, and where he disappeared. His last known address was an apartment above an abandoned theater. The building had been condemned since 1934 but never torn down. The locals called it the Black Stage. No one went near it. Windows were boarded, entrance chained. Except when I got there, the chain was broken, as if someone had gone in recently, or never left. Inside, the air was thick, dust in my throat like old film ash. The theater smelled of mildew and forgotten things. I stepped onto the stage. The boards creaked like bones. There was no screen, only a massive mirror nailed where the screen should have been. And in it, I didn't see myself. I saw the projection booth, and a man inside, wearing a black coat. No face, just a yawning mouth. And I realized the theater wasn't reflecting me. It was showing me the next scene. I climbed to the booth. Everything was untouched, like time had paused. The projector was still there, ancient and iron, its real arms frozen mid-motion. But someone had carved into the wood casing. One word, frame. Not a message, a command. I opened the machine. Inside was a single reel, smaller than standard. No label. It was warm to the touch. I didn't need to load it, didn't need to play it, because the moment I held it, it played through me. I saw Winshoff on the Russian front, standing over corpses, filming death before cinema had words. I saw him wake in the middle of the night, surrounded by candles, sketching that same mouth over and over on parchment. I saw his wife leave, his child fall, and I felt what he felt. The exact moment he stopped being a director and became a lens. He didn't make Derlet's schnitt. He opened himself and it filled him. And now it wanted someone else. Someone who knew how to cut, who knew how to splice memory into meaning, who knew how to make others watch. Someone like me. I threw the reel into the fire pit behind the theater, watched it hiss, curl, disappear. But the ash rose against gravity, and in the flame's glow I saw it again. That same figure, just beyond the trailing, unburned, waiting, watching me watch it. I'm writing this on the last page of my notebook. If you found it, it means I didn't make it out. Or maybe I did, but I'm not me anymore. Here's what I know now. The final cut doesn't kill you. It edits you, removes the parts that resist, loops the moments that hurt, replaces memory with frames that don't belong to you. And once it's done, you're not a person, you're a sequel. So if you hear of a video with no title, a lost reel with no director, a screen that stays black for longer than it should, walk away. Let the light fade, because some stories don't end when the credits roll. Some stories recast you. Part 6, The Cut That Doesn't End. I left Vienna with no luggage, no plan. Only one goal, end the story. Burn the last traces, silence the name, remove every memory. I didn't want to destroy it. That was never the point. I just wanted to make sure no one else would press play. My first stop was the hospital in Berlin. That's where they'd buried the original police files from the Winshof case, sealed for decades under moral risk. It took weeks of red tape, forged credentials, and cold charm. But I got access. Inside were yellowed pages, typewritten autopsy reports, charred photographs, and a VHS tape labeled R. Print A. I knew better. I didn't watch it. I listened. It was audio from a lost screening in 1927. A microphone had been hidden near the front row of the Kino Euro, one of Winshof's final showings. The tape was damaged, skipping. But what I heard was unmistakable. Audience screaming, but not from fear, from recognition. I replayed a section over and over. It chilled me more each time. A man's voice cracking, half sobbing. It's me in there. Please, I don't want to watch me die again. That was the moment I understood. The film doesn't show horror. It records it, not acted, not scripted. Real. Winshof didn't direct the final cut. He harvested it. I returned to Chicago with a simple plan. Upload everything I had to a dark storage server, then delete myself. Not suicide, not violence, just erasure. No name, no digital footprint. A clean splice. But I wasn't fast enough. When I got to the server room, someone was already there. Back turned. Loading a disk. I froze. Paul? I said. He turned. It wasn't Paul. It was me. Not a twin. Not a double. A future. My face years older. Skin pale. Eyes sunken. Dried tears on my cheeks. He looked at me the way I'd looked at Richard once. Broken. Defeated. Don't try, he said. We already cut this scene. It doesn't work. He handed me a folder. Inside was a printed transcript, everything I'd written, every journal entry, every voice memo, even this notebook. How do you have this? I asked. He pointed to the ceiling, the sprinklers. Loss, he said, lives in the backup. I ran. I left the servers, burned my notes, threw the typewriter into Lake Michigan. But deep down I knew, you can't delete a story, not once it's told, especially not one that feeds on grief. That night I tried something new, not to fight it, not to flee, but to ask it a question. I sat in a pitch black room, no lights, no sound, just an old cassette recorder. I pressed record, then I said, "What are you?" No reply. I waited. An hour passed. Then I heard it, breathing. Not mine. Not from the recorder. From behind me. I didn't turn around. I just whispered, "If I tell them not to watch, will you leave them alone?" It moved closer. The breath grew colder. Then a voice, so soft I could barely hear it. "Only if they remember not to look back." I woke the next morning in the same chair. The recorder was blank, but the tape itself had warped, melted in the shape of a mouth. So here I am, writing this in a borrowed notebook. No digital copies, no backups, no cloud. Because here's the truth. You can't destroy a film that was never shot. You can't bury a reel that was never physical. This isn't a movie. It's a cut in reality, a skipped beat in your memory, a hallway you don't remember walking down until the walls start whispering your name. If you're reading this now, I've probably already faded, not died, just rewritten, a different edit, a background figure in someone else's scene. The Archivist credited as missing, but maybe you still have a chance. If you feel a hum in the silence, if your mirror lags for half a second, if a video autoplays with no thumbnail, don't look, don't click, don't share, because some frames aren't frozen in time. Some frames are waiting, and every time you remember this story, you're pressing play. Part 7, Shadowed Playback, was just a theory, a stupid, desperate theory. But when you've burned your past, lost your name, and become a whisper in your own life, you try things. And so I tried the unthinkable. I turned the camera back on. I didn't use my face, didn't use my name. I set up a burner account, cheap mic dead laptop, a $20 webcam from a pawn shop in Iowa. Then I sat in a pitch black room and pressed record. No images, no music, just my voice, telling the story. From the beginning, I titled the video, The Archivist's Cut Shadowed Tales Archive. I tagged nothing, shared nowhere, kept the settings private. But that didn't matter, because by morning the video had over 4,000 views. I checked the comments. Most were confused, curious, creeped out. But a few recognized something. One said, I dreamed this exact hallway before I ever clicked. Another, why does the narrator sound like my father? My dad's been dead 12 years. And then, this isn't a story, it's a trap. That's when the messages started. Private DMs, emails, even physical letters somehow addressed to the burner name I never shared. People said the video followed them. They delete it, but it would return. Embedded in other playlists, auto-playing after cooking videos, hidden in thumbnails. One person said it replaced their wedding footage. Another claimed their toddler started drawing the figure. Mouth only, no eyes. One message just read, we gave it a stage. You gave it a microphone. But I had to keep going. I had to understand how deep the cut really went. So I uploaded part 2, then part 3. Each time I twisted the narrative tighter. I emphasized memory, loss, the mirror that doesn't reflect, the light that hums even in silence. I wasn't embellishing anymore. I was channeling, and something was listening. I started to see numbers appear in strange places. Receipts, street signs, oven clocks. 13 hours, 27 minutes, and 45 seconds. That was the exact timestamp of the first blackout moment in Der letzte Schnitt. It followed me like a barcode. I saw it carved into a tree near a rest stop, spray painted on the back of a stop sign, even stitched somehow into the collar of a shirt I'd never bought. And every time I saw it, I felt a pull, like a scene waiting to be shot. Then one night, my mic turned on by itself. I wasn't recording, but I heard breath, and then a voice, not loud, not human, just a slow, vibrating sentence. You are the narrator now. I unplugged everything, smashed the mic, tossed the laptop, but it didn't matter, because people had started reenacting the scenes. Not cosplay, not fan projects. Reliving them. A man in New Jersey filmed himself staring at a wall for 8 hours. Said the wall was replaying something only he could see. A woman in Texas posted a video describing her dead sister calling her from inside a film projector. A child in Poland was found sleepwalking into a theater that had burned down in 1942. All of them said the same thing. We heard the story. Now we see it. That's when I knew. I'd made a mistake. I hadn't contained it. I'd structured it, gave it rhythm, format, chapters. I turned it into a narrative vessel, and now it was flowing faster than I could contain. Because stories don't just move forward, they echo. I tried to delete the videos. YouTube said they'd already been removed for policy reasons. But I still found them, mirrored across dozens of accounts, embedded in Creepypasta channels, whispered into podcasts, shared in ARG forums. Some were transcripts read in different languages. Some were just silence with the video title, "We're Still Watching." I started receiving packages, each one worse than the last. One was a roll of undeveloped film with a sticky note. "Process this. It contains my memory." Another was a tape recorder that played back a voice whispering, "You told my story wrong. Let me fix it." And one package, just a mirror. And in its reflection, I saw the cloaked figure, standing behind me, smiling with my mouth. Now I stay in motion. No address, no screen time. I burn every journal after a week, and I tell no one my name, because if I stop, if I start writing again, it will find me. But sometimes on stormy nights I get this thought, this itch in my brain. Maybe it was always meant to be told. Maybe that's the point. Maybe I was never supposed to stop it. Just frame it, so others could see, and remember, and replay. Because stories like this don't need an ending, just an audience. And if you've come this far, congratulations, you've been cast. Part 8, The Final Fade. I used to think endings were final, like closing credits, black screen, done. But I know better now, because some stories don't end. They just change editors. I've been off the grid for months. No screens, no notes, no more uploads. I left the last town with nothing but a box of old film reels and the clothes on my back. And still, somehow they find me. People, strangers, saying things like, "I heard your voice in my dreams. My son said you told him bedtime stories in German. There's a room in my house that didn't exist until I heard your story." I tried silence, tried forgetting. But silence isn't protection, it's invitation. Because when no one tells the story, it tells itself. And forgetting? It's just the first frame in a new reel. So I went back to where it all started, Chicago. The studio was gone, burned out, demolished, replaced with a parking garage. But deep beneath the concrete there was still something. A foundation, a flicker, a hum. And when I stood above it, I heard that same breath behind me. But I didn't run this time. I spoke. "You win," I whispered. "But I choose the final cut." And just like that, everything shifted. No explosion, no blood, just the quiet snap of a reel finishing its turn. And I was somewhere else. Not heaven, not hell. The theater. Massive. Seats stretching on forever. The screen flickered in front of me, white noise forming shapes. Not memories, versions. On the screen I saw me. Not once, but dozens of times. In different towns, different lives. Sometimes running, sometimes recording. Always watching, always watched. That's when I understood. I wasn't the narrator. I was the projector. The thing that gave it shape. Voice, light. The cut never ends. It just loops through new players. But here's the thing about loops. They can be spliced. So I made a choice. One final edit. I stepped out of the reel, broke the loop, and sat in the front row staring back at the screen. not to run, not to record, but to hold it, to keep it from spreading again, at least for now. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't pass the same way inside the cut, but sometimes I feel it stir, like a breath, like static building behind the curtain. And I know someone is remembering, someone is pressing play. Maybe it's you. Maybe you've come this far thinking you're just a listener, just an observer. But you've heard the hum, haven't you? The rhythm in silence, the weight of a scene that feels too familiar. So here's your choice. Forget this story. Let it fade, or tell it again. Whisper it in your own voice. Share it with someone curious enough to click. If you do, remember this. You're not the audience anymore. You're holding the reel now. And whatever you do, don't look into the frame too long, because the frame is looking back.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. New stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.